So I wanted to talk about the All-Star Game to round out today's show. Because with the AllStar Rosters being revealed yesterday, as well as the last man in segments being revealed by the league and promoted on the media, it makes a really kind of strange sort of package that I think that the NHL is going to present this year for their All-Star Game and All-Star Skills competition. We're also going to be talking as well about the players that were not included on these lists, the players that weren't included on the regular rosters, nor were they included on the last man in. Because when you start getting over NHL names and you talk about the definition of an all-star and why we even have this competition and who gets to go and who doesn't get to go, it makes for a very intriguing discussion. So let's just go over the rosters for yesterday's All-Star reveal as to who's going to be on the teams for Team Metro, Team Atlantic, Team Pacific, and Team Central. Let's start out on the NHL website and take a look at the Metropolitan Division All-Star appearances. They have themselves from the Carolina Hurricanes, Sebastian Aho. Okay, pretty good. Claude Giroux from the Philadelphia Flyers. Nice. Jack Hughes from the New Jersey Devils. You know what? If I want to go out there and say that anybody has worked hard enough to deserve the recognition, Jack Hughes is that guy. Kreider from the Rangers, the guy's a goal-scoring machine. It's not a surprise that he's on there. Alex Ovechkin is one of the best players in the gosh darn world right now, so of course, he also was the fan-voted captain. Adam Fox is over here, probably one of the best defenders in the entire NHL, so not surprising there. Adam Pelech from the Islanders, they've been a bad team, but hey, Pelech is still going because every team needs at least one person, and we'll get into that soon. Zach Werenski is here from Columbus. He's been having a good season. Frederik Andersen, one of the best goalies in the NHL. And then you have Tristan Jarry for Pittsburgh. That is it for the Metropolitan Division. In the Atlantic, you have yourselves Drake Batherson from the Ottawa Senators, Bergeron from the Bruins, Huberdeau from the Panthers, Larkin from the Red Wings, Matthews from Toronto, Nick Suzuki from Montreal. Okay, we're going to go over Nick Suzuki here in a bit. Rasmus Dahlin from the Sabres, Hedman from the Lightning, Campbell from Toronto, and then Vasilevsky also from the Lightning. The Central has yourselves names like Kyle Connor, DeBrincat, Kaprizov, Keller, Kyrou, McKinnon, and Pavelski rounding out the forwards, plus one defender in Cale Makar and two goalies, UC Saros from Nashville and Cam Talbot from Minnesota. And then on the Pacific, you have yourselves Draisaitl, Eberle, Gaudreau, Kempe, McDavid, Meyer, Stone, Pietrangelo, Gibson, and Demko. Now, there are a million things we can go over when it comes to these rosters over here. Primarily the entire notion that the NHL has to go out there and send at least one player from every team, because when you take a look at some of these rosters over here and you see who is an all-star and who isn't an all-star, I take a look immediately at the Atlantic Division and I say, darn. Nick Suzuki is an all-star this year for the Montreal Canadiens. I get it, you have to send one player from every team to this all-star event, but it was either Nick Suzuki or Chris Weidman that you had the opportunity to go out there and say should go. It's kind of whack because when you take a look at teams that actually have more players that are probably worth making the all-star team, like Colorado for example, Nazem Kadri is a guy that is one of the top NHL point producers this season. And Nick Suzuki is an automatic buy-in to the All-Star team because he plays on a team that isn't represented anywhere else in this event. Nick Suzuki has 19 points in 36 games played this season, and he was kind of a default lock to be on this team already because Montreal is bad enough that you can't go out there sending Chris Weidman to the All-Star game. Nazem Kadri, on the other hand, has 48 points in 30 games played and 35 assists. He is literally the top assist guy in the entire National Hockey League. He is not at the All-Star game. Rantanen's not at the All-Star game. In fact, this is what Nathan MacKinnon said about the All-Star game. It's silly. I don't think every team should send a guy. It's an All-Star game, not a participation game. And in fact, you take a look at some of the guys that are even on this roster, like, for example, John Gibson isn't really having the best season this year. I get it, Gibson is a good player, and he's got himself a very, very good resume for the past few years over here, but you can't tell me that John Gibson is this year's Anaheim Ducks All-Star and not a guy like Trevor Zegras, not a guy like Troy Terry. Oh, but Troy Terry's the last man in, Lego. You can go out there and see the roster yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. The last man in is a segment where NHL fans can vote on 4 more All-Stars. So one player from every division represented by every team. The Atlantic has Charlie McAvoy, Tage Thompson. Like, Tage Thompson is in this conversation. We could vote that guy into the All-Star game. I know he's been good, but still, this kind of falls into the entire discussion we're having here. Barkov, Raymond, Toffoli, Brady Tkachuk, Steven Stamkos, and John Tavares. In the Metro, you have yourselves Svechnikov, Voracek, Brott, Broad's been very good, by the way. Barzal, Zibanejad, Cam Atkinson, Jake Gensel, and Kuznetsov. By the way, how the heck was Jake Gensel not even put onto the regular team in the first place? 45 points, my gosh. Kessel, Seth Jones, Kadri, Robertson, Hartman, Yossi, Robert Thomas, and Mark Scheifele round out the Central, and then in the Pacific you have Troy Terry, Matthew Tkachuk, Darnell Nurse, Drew Doughty, Logan Couture, Mark Giordano, JT Miller, and Jonathan Marchand. The Vancouver one's pretty interesting, because for JT Miller to be put in this position and Quinn Hughes to not even really be considered, it kind of gets me thinking about who is on this team. For example, Alex Pietrangelo has a significantly lower point per game rate than Quinn Hughes does this season. Quinn has improved a ton, and I think there was a mock roster before the actual All-Star list was revealed yesterday that had Quinn Hughes as a potential option going. And when you think about it like that, it's like, okay, the All-Star teams are assembled in a certain way because the NHL has this mandate. They have to appeal to their sponsors. They have to get one player from every team. It's all for marketing, right? But, like, do you care about the All-Star game? That's another thing that I want to propose out there in the comment section, too, because I don't watch the game. I really, I look at the highlights, I see what Wayne Gretzky has to say about players that go out there and dazzle his eyes, but when it comes to the All-Star Weekend, the thing that I pay most attention to is the skills competition. I want to see who has the hardest slap shot, who can skate around the fastest, do all the crazy stuff over there. And to me, I don't really understand how the NHL can go out there and say, okay, our priority is to have every team represented because it's for marketing, it's for the appeasement of the sponsors, because I don't really know if the collective NHL fan base really cares all too much about the All-Star game. You watch the players going out there, they certainly don't. They're all just gliding, nobody's body checking, nobody's really giving it 100%, they're all just trying fancy deeks and all that, and you can tell these guys are all hungover. Like, does anybody really get that much value out of the game itself? And if you do, please tell me in the comments what that comes from, why it's so entertaining to watch the best hockey players in the world supposedly half-ass it the entire time. If this was a World Cup of Hockey where it's best on best, or it's the Olympics where it's best on best, and they're actually going out there trying to win, then okay, I could go out there and say that that is entertaining. But the product that the NHL ices for the All-Star game is always just that. It's a hungover hockey game. And now you have yourselves a conversation going around saying, okay, the game itself is kind of whack, and the players themselves, I mean, these aren't the best players in the league. If you had a legit all-star collective group of players, you would have like 5 Tampa Bay Lightning players. You'd have 3 Colorado Avalanche players. You'd have all these guys on all these other teams, and you wouldn't be afraid to say, sorry, Montreal, Nick Suzuki is your best player, but we can't have him here because he's not as good as Nazem Kadri. In fact, this is a list published by Greg Wyshynski of players that were not named to the 2022 All-Star Game or on the Last Man In ballot. Crosby, Panarin, Shesterkin, Marchand, Ekblad, Nylander, Riley, Duchesne, Tarasenko, Kopitar, Quinn Hughes. All these guys are having fantastic seasons, if not huge, significant improvement seasons from what they had last year. And all these guys, in my opinion, if you slapped the label of All-Star on them, I'd be like, yeah, like, Shesterkin is definitely good enough to be an All-Star. Panarin, good enough to be an All-Star. Quinn Hughes, done it before. He's great enough this year. Nylander, Ekblad, Marchand, these guys are having seasons for the ages right now, and they're not even on the Last Man In ballot. That's not to disrespect the guys that are there. I get it. You guys got to get at least one player on there. But some of the choices going out here, like, do you really think that it's probably better for the game for fans to vote for one Tage Thompson to head into this All-Star game, or a Tyler Toffoli into this All-Star game, ahead of a guy like Brad Marchand, who is top 10 in the league in points right now? Maybe they don't want to go. We had Ovechkin have that entire spiel a few years ago where he said, yeah, I don't want to go. Find me. Like, I want to rest up my body. That's fair. It's just, it's so difficult for me to look at the way the NHL promotes this All-Star game and the way it chooses the players for the All-Star game, and 100% put my heart and belief into the product. Because, it's difficult, right? Nick Suzuki is going to be an All-Star, and probably, like, I'm going to be honest here, if Nick Suzuki plays the way that he's going to be able to play in the next few years, like this year, 21-22 is going to be the worst year of his career. Imagine he makes the All-Star game and he is a part of the skills competition in this year, the one where he is absolutely bollocks because everybody else in the Canadians are bollocks, and next year he goes out there and he gets 60 points and he's not considered for the All-Star game. Like, that's just kind of how this is going down, and it's really strange to me to watch it unfold. Talk to me in the comments if you feel the same way, or if you have any other opinions about the All-Star Game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.